Welcome to this week's Q&A. We've got a great question from one of our viewers in London this week, and they're asking what are the costs and what's the documentation required to refinance an Australian loan as an Aussie expat abroad. Now, great question, because it basically is very similar to having an Australian mortgage and being a resident Australian within the country. What are the requirements there? Well, most banks will ask you to fill in a loan application, which goes into quite some detail in terms of your personal situation, employment, current and historical, your income, and then your expenses, and that goes into quite some detail so that the bank gets a very good summary of what your financial position is. There will obviously also be questions in relation to your current assets and liabilities, and that will also impact someone's borrowing capacity, and then income producing investments such as investment properties in the whole. They're the basic requirements. Banks will also have their own documentation in relation to privacy and disclosure of information to third parties, and in the main, that is basically the same if you're an Australian resident or a non-resident trying to refinance your mortgage from abroad. This person had a sort of add-on to this, and that was they were looking to refinance a principal and interest loan back to an interest-only loan. And in this instance, it's very much the same as before because it is basically a new loan application. So the bank has to make sure that your current financial position allows you to comfortably service the loan that you're applying for. But I guess the rub in this is that if you're trying to do that with the same bank that you're with, you may actually have some difficulty at times, depending on who the lender is, in going back to an interest-only loan. In most instances we can overcome that, so it's something that somebody would have to reach out to us on a personal basis, and we could easily assist them and say, look, we can do this with the same lender or potentially take you to another lender if that's appropriate. Anyway, they're the sort of things that we can assist anyone with. We specialise obviously in doing Australian expat loans, so it makes the situation far more robust in the way we present it to the bank, and it's something that we do day in, day out, so we know what they're looking for. Above and beyond that, I guess the only real major difference is that potentially if you're working in a jurisdiction in a different language where your pay slips or pay advices may be in another language, we'd need to get those translated. But in the main, most of our clients don't fall into that category, so you'll need things like bank statements, income and expense statements from the property managers of your existing investment properties if you have any, credit card statements, pay slips. They're very normal, I guess, items that the bank requires to substantiate the claims that you've made in your loan application. And as far as costs involved, these days again there typically are no break fees associated with bank loans. So generally speaking, if it's a straightforward situation, there aren't really any great costs that are involved in relation to a client seeking to obtain this assistance for them. So that sort of sums up what that question entails, but as I say, it's different depending on where you are in the world and what you're seeking to achieve. So if this is only of general nature, and if you need anything like examining your personal situation, please reach out. If you like what you've heard, then look at our YouTube channel and press like. I'm Andrew Unterweger from Wise Guru, and I'll see you at next week's Q&A.